right? We mentioned that if you close above the range in November, there's a high chance you are going to come up and tap 19 or 2074 and obviously make all-time highs. My bad. Yeah, so you closed above this range to the left here, right? This range right around here. Now, with that closure above, like obviously, that's the first time we're ever closing above this range. Let me zoom in a little closer. So the monthly here, right? You close above this range. This is the first time you ever close above the range. Now, the reason why I'm saying the first time is because this is what you're looking at. You're looking at this candle closure that happened sort of like last night during the, or not last night, in November, right? With the closure above, you did what these candles to the left here couldn't do. These candles all came up at one given point, came up this made awesome highs in 2020. Started to reject. They never once closed above. So this kind of set you off the resistance, and then this month, finally in November, you finally closed above that resistance you had back in 2020. So what that indicates is that now that we're closing above, you're going to drive up towards the next resistance. Now the problem was there's no real target on price. There was, I'll say, like the resistance here, but that's about it. 2074. So once you broke above, like once you close above, you're kind of like saying, or I was saying for the monthly, like no matter what price does, you're going to see it come up and tap 2074 before doing anything else. Why? Because with us closing above the range here, right? And I don't want to confuse anybody here with this. And if you are in buys, like, you know, I'm bullish too, but like I'm just saying this from this perspective, because this is how you kind of got to view the charts. If price were to, for some given reason, to reverse, how would that be formed, right? That's kind of what you got to ask yourself, because obviously price is bullish. The whole world knows we're bullish, right? I know we're bullish too. But if you were to, in some given world, reverse on price, how would price reverse on the monthly, right? Like, be logical about it. Don't say, well done, the bias is bullish, like there's no way price can come down. Like, I understand that, but like in some given world, if price were to drive down, right, how would price drive down on the monthly? If you opened up right here on the monthly time frame, where you close above the range for the first time ever since 2020, and you have no bottom wick, how would price be able to reverse? So the first thing you'll say is, okay, cool, no matter what happens here, I'll assume that even if price were to reverse, you're gonna see these highs get tapped, which was this yellow box that I had, or my bad, let me just change the color of the box and make it a little easier. But this is the high, right? So no matter where price taps, with the closure you had on this pink zone here, you're gonna have to tap into that next pink zone, which is 2080, 2075, right? Why? Because this is where the most recent resistance, I'll say, is. So even if price were to reverse, it's obviously going to come up, create a top wick first before driving down, because it needs to grab liquidity. Your next support is sitting at 2000. That's pretty far away. For you to rip down towards 20,000 or 2000, you need a lot of volume and liquidity to do so. So you're going to have to tap into 2080. And if you were to drive up, obviously you're tapped to 2080. You'll be breaking 2080 highs, right? So it's you're kind of in a situation where it's like, okay, well, you're in a good spot, because even if price were to reverse, you're going to see a 2080 tap. And if you were to drive up, you're going to see a 2075 tap, right? Or 2080 tap. And that's kind of what happened. You came up to start the month off, came up, tapped 2080, and my bad. You came up, tapped 2080, and now you're starting to form a top wick. So now it's like, okay, cool. The monthly has no bottom wick, right? The first thing price did the first 2 days was come up, make all-time highs. Now what's going to happen? Is price going to flip on the monthly, or is price gonna hold that monthly area to continue driving up? I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen now, right? But what I do know is that this is what the monthly currently looks like. It currently looks like you are starting to reject. So let's see what happens here. It all comes down now to the weekly, daily, and obviously the 4 hour time frames, right? But it's pretty early to set the month off. So there's a lot of possibilities that can happen this month. Like, you have 25 days left. That's a lot of days left, right? For all I know, you could even like close off bullish here for the month like this. After you can come down, create a bottom wick, and close bullish above the range, which would then make next month fill this wick. And I believe that next month will give you a lot more data to work with if this were to be the case. Not so much this month. Or you can even like flip bearish on price here for all I know, and close bearish respecting support like this. Or you can close back into the range, right? Like, lots could happen here. On price. So you have 25 days left. Let's see what happens. So all we know right now is that you did come up for the first part of December, and you have no bottom wick on price, and you've already rejected the highs. So let's see what happens now. You have a lot more data to work with. You have all the data from, what is this, 2190, right? 2140 down to like 2070. So that's all the data you have to work with. So let's drop down to a small time frame and see what happens here on price here. But that's just the overall monthly outlook. It won't really affect today's charts, today's like buys or sells, whatever we look to catch. It's just more so of the monthly outlook and something to look forward to when it comes to the monthly time frame. Fuck man, this chair keeps rolling. But yeah, that's the monthly. Now dropping down to daily here, right? If you take a look at the daily same boat as well. First thing price did yesterday was to obviously pop up during the Asian session on the opening, and then started to reject, and now you're sitting back at 2075, 2070-ish areas, which was Friday's area in price. So with the weekly, I can't really do much. All I have here really is the fact that you close above this range. Right? You close above this range for the first time ever since 2020. And with that being said, you're obviously going to push up towards the next resistance. Obviously, it's good. We have more data now. We have a new high right here. So I'm guessing this is the current range we're in. We're in a range between 2040 and 2140. That's one massive range we're currently sitting in, because you obviously broke above the previous levels, which brought you up until this area on price. So this is your previous level, which was in this green box here, and now you're breaking into the new level, which is a yellow level, because this is the resistance you broke into. This resistance becomes support. This is your next resistance. This is the range you're sitting in, right? So that's your range overall, 2140 to 2040, right? Understand that nothing much to look for, nothing much we can really do about this. It's just the range we're in. But what I will say is that if this is the range you're in, right, and price already rejected at 2140, could you fill the rest of the range down, which takes you down towards the bottom of the range here, which takes you down towards these areas here, towards 2040, right? Could that be the case today? Because you rejected 2140, and your next support is 2040. So you have some room coming down from 2069 to 2040. That's something you can possibly play with today in the range. But let me drop down to a daily and see what's up here. Dropping down to a daily. Obviously you have 9 hours left into the daily candle. Same, I'll say similar candle structure as you have on the weekly, obviously. Again, you have the high at 2140, that doesn't change anything, and you have your support sitting at 2051. So I can't really do much here. All I can really say is that you did come up, you rejected, and now you're starting to flip bearish. If that's the case, does price have enough room to drive down towards 2050, right? That's what I'm asking myself right now. That's the daily. So let's drop down to the 4. I think the 4 is when you have a bit more data on the 4-hour time frame. So yeah, so dropping down to the 4. If you guys take a close look at the 4, you had obviously one huge massive candle, and I know you guys are probably thinking, you guys are probably like, oh Don, there's a wick fill there, can you fill the wick there? Yes and no. And I kind of want to go back to, I had a plan when I woke up this morning. First thing I did when I woke up, I'm like, gold. I didn't check gold charts, but I'm like, my plan today is to look at gold's 2020 charts, because I want to see if we can mirror that exact same price area. I want to see if it's in the same similar boat in terms of mirroring. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go all the way back here to 2020 to see what happened last time you rejected at 2020 highs, right? Because when you were at the same highs, or not the same highs, but when you made a high, you rejected. I want to see if price is able to grab liquidity again. So now I'm looking at this structure here on price, right? I'm looking back at 2020 levels. Obviously, we're back within this area here on price, which is at 2069. You don't have a 4-hour closure for another hour at 9 a.m. So you don't got to worry about this just yet. But later on, we can focus to see if we can close back into the same range we had last time as well, which is at 2069. But for now, I want to see in terms of structure if we have anything familiar in price here. So you obviously create a high here. So this is what the structure kind of looks like right now. You create a high, right? This is the high you had in 2020. You then made a low, which I'm guessing that's where price is right now. And then you grab liquidity. I'm trying to see where exactly you grab liquidity at, because you had all this traffic on the way up, right? And then you came all the way back down, created support. This is the range you're breaking into. And then you create a top wick here, right? You came down, range for a bit, and then you create a top wick here, and then you drove down. So if you were to drive down, could you get the same similar plays? So this is the range you're in, cool, right? And then this is the new range you created, which is this area. And then you made a new high right around there before making your way back into the range and so forth. So I'm trying to see if we can get the same areas on price here on the current charts. So right? So you look, this is like kind of what I'm looking at here. I'm kind of looking at it from this perspective, like, and it might be confusing here, but the thing is, like, if this is your resistance on price, right? You see what I mean? You see what I mean? I don't know if it's clicking the same way it's clicking at you guys, the way it's clicking at me right now. But you see what I mean? For some given reason, the levels identically match up. The resistance, I didn't move any levels. I drew the same levels on Zoom for a reason. But the resistance is there. The support is right there. The range you have to come down is there, which is what? 2050. Remember we mentioned 2050 on the daily and the weekly? We said how could the daily come down towards 2050? Could the weekly come down towards 2050? In this case, the 4 candle looks exactly the same as it did in 2020 after making all-time highs with the same bearish candle, the same resistance, the same support, the same range. You see, like, is it just me? You know what I'm saying? So it's like same resistance you have reformed, same support you have reformed, same bearish candle you had at resistance formed. So now, if this were to be the same play as 2020, what you could possibly see here is you can possibly see a drive down towards 2050. And then once you drive down towards 2050, it'll look something like this. Right? And then you start to range. Then you should start to range, because then what happens is you would then have some type of support being formed there, some type of resistance being formed there, who knows, right? But you'll be ranging for quite some bit. And then after you range for quite some bit, could you grab liquidity? Which is going to be where, chat? Where is liquidity going to be at? Right there. So if you were to go back to 2020, you're going to see the same exact thing. After 2020 we go. Where is it? I can find it. Hold on. Give me a second. Nope, that's 22. Hold on. Give me a second. This is like the first thing when I woke up this morning, like for some reason this is the first thing I thought about. I didn't even look at gold chart. I just woke up, I'm like, gold mirror 2020. And I'm like, that's the idea I kind of have for today's stream. Look. You see what I mean? It's a very similar area. It's not exactly very identical. And it's at 2 different completely levels, right? But in terms of the structure, when you were at all-time highs, could that form today? That's what you're asking yourself. Could you get the same mirror today, right? You had the resistance form there. You didn't have the support form there. You didn't have the range form there. And then you have a top wick form there, which is at 2049 in this case, right? So could that happen? But before, obviously, any of this forms on price, you got to worry about this, what's happening here, right? So that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to see what happened there in the past. So I'm trying to see now if you need a 4-hour closure here, or you need just, or you can take sells off of the 1-hour close, right? So I'll get to that in a second here, but this is what the 4-hour looks like, right? You have no top wick on the candle high. You close below the most recent resistance. I'll say right around there, or support right around there, slightly below the range. And now you have a possible wick to be filled. So this is what I'm asking myself right now. Obviously you've been bearish since the Asian opening, right? So if you've been bearish since the Asian opening, again, we're still bullish overall, but if you've been bearish since the Asian opening, what makes the most sense if price were to drive down, and what makes the most sense if price were to drive back up? Because if they both align, then that's your position right there. That's the position you're looking for, right? So in this case, like the 4-hour candle, you have a resistance right around here in this range here at the top of this area, right? Cool. Resistance formed at 2090. Your support now, I'll say, is, let me go ahead and just zoom in a little closer. So this is your resistance, right? 2090. Cool. Your support now, I'll say, is more so of like, in terms of current area, you can say it's right here. But in terms of overall, this is what you're looking at next. So if you were to drive down towards 2048, wouldn't you need more liquidity to drive down that steep? Like, wouldn't you wait for a top wick or something to be formed, right? That's what I would assume. So I'll assume that even if price were to drive down in this case here, you can look for potential sells, but once you get a top wick, something like this to drive down, right? Or for all I know, price can drive down the last 50 minutes here. But if price were to drive back up, right, what would need to happen? Could price drive up like this to the top of the range with that being the bottom wick, right? or will price see something like this before driving up? Because I believe that if you close bearish at resistance here, right, and then in the following candle at 1 a.m. close bearish at resistance, and now this is the 5 a.m. candle to the 9 a.m. candle, this has only an hour left into the candle and you haven't moved yet, right? So I think today you're gonna really have to focus on the 1 hour candle before the 4 hour candle, obviously, because this is like the 8 a.m. opening and you should start to move this 8 a.m. candle, and this should lead to the close. But I'm assuming that if you do end up closing back below this range here, below 69, which looking left we mentioned earlier, if you close below 69 or even below here, I think this level is going to be 1967 or 2067. If you close below there, I'll say that the next 4 hour candle afterwards will be a pretty decent one, because then you have a closure below, you have a confirmation that you're closing below the range, and the next 4 hour candle should just make its way down towards like 2050 pretty nicely. And you might see a top wick up here at like 2080 or whatever the case may be, but you'll see some type of closure first, and then you'll see this move play out. So I'll say today's positions could likely be more so towards like after 9 a.m. than it would be towards before 8 a.m. or before 9 a.m. But I gotta drop down to the 1 hour to see what's up. But overall, like, I'm trying to see what happens here, because this is a very interesting area. You have a minor level sitting right here on price at 2067, which I don't know if you're gonna close below. But what I do know is that you spent the first half of this candle creating a bottom wick. So is this a bottom wick for us to drive up, or is this a bottom wick for us to drive down? If this 4 hour candle right here to the left close respecting the support, I'll say, yeah, this is a bottom wick for us to drive up to retest 2088. But with us below this range here, I believe that there's a possibility that we could end up just closing bearish below the range to drop down at 9 a.m. So let me just see what's up here on the 1 hour candle, because this will lead to the 4. And you have a lot more information here. But yeah, cool. Look, you can kind of see like the structure is obviously bearish since the Asian opening. You had kind of like this push down here, and then you had a range being formed, which is aka just a lower low, lower high being formed, and then a new lower low. So now I'm asking to see if we can get a new lower high being formed. What I have here right now on price on the 1 hour is I have a support being formed there at 2063, which I would now have a better idea of what price is going to do here. Wow. Okay, cool. So let me break this down for you guys in a second here. Let me just make sure this level lines up with my levels. Interesting. Okay, cool. So 2063.115. Nice. Could you move it down a little lower? 2061. Not too much of a difference. And also this doesn't really matter much, because it's just like support being formed. It's not really like an entry looking for sells below or looking for buys above anyways. So it's just a level to identify a range basically. So I'll move that there. But look, this is the 1 hour support, right? And then you have a 1 hour resistance sitting on price right around here, which you then close respecting here. So if that were to be the case here, okay, yeah, this is gonna get very interesting, chat. Lock it in here. But look, if you were to have that support there, and this is your resistance sitting at 2072.092, could you possibly, wow, that's perfect. Could you possibly get a top wick tapping 2072 before making your way down towards 63? Because the overall idea here, I'll say, is that if price were to drive down here, I would assume that you'll see a top wick before driving down, which is going to be something like this, before making your way down towards 2063, or before continuing to drive down, right? Because your next support after 2063 is like down here at 2048, and that's a pretty massive range to drive. That's 200 pips, and if you were to drive down that steep, I would assume you get a top wick. So with the 1 hour kind of opening up the way it is right now, and you have range going up towards 2072, could we get buys going up towards 2072, which is going to be a 35 to 4 pip range going up here, off of the 1 hour candle close, right? I'm just trying to see how steep this bottom wick is, but I believe it should be within this area here to the left on price, which is like 2066.917. Once you tap that zone, I believe buys could be valid to drive up towards 2062 or 2072, and that's going to be a 50 pip range to drive up on price. So it's not bad at all. That's the idea I kind of have here on the 1 hour time frame, chat. Looking for buys to go up towards 2072, because I believe that if price were to drive down towards like the next support, which takes you down towards these areas on price at 2050, you're going to need a pretty steep